through, and we will mull over these in the coming panel session. Number one was, of course, how the industry can collaborate with assistance from the government bodies to have strategically joint ventures and partnerships for an end-to-end program that you could bid in the international markets, and rather than a fragmented approach that exists today. And it could be a loosely coupled approach between the government and the bodies in consulting, construction, and design engineering bodies. And rather than having a small-scale fragmented approach, have an end-to-end approach. The next was, during the FTA negotiations, one of the challenge Commerce Secretary mentioned was a recognition of Indian engineering. With the lack of engineers bill, lack of chartered engineers, professional engineers approach in India, the recognition has been a challenge. So if we were to improve from the academic recognition, have consistent qualities across our engineering, architecture, environmental colleges, then the recognition would happen in the FTAs much easily. Mobility challenge from visas issues, an idea was proposed, we should look at project visas rather than individual work permits, and a project visa category will really accelerate putting our talent in that country on a project visa basis. We also discussed about exclusionary terms and conditions coming in Indian contracts that basically limit the ability for Indian companies. The discussion was not to have an unfair playing ground. Have a fair, level playing field. Let all consulting, be it international or Indian, compete. But the PQ criteria should not be biased that eliminate Indian consulting firms, small and big, at the cost of international firms doing projects. Because if that happens, there's nothing for Indian companies to export in the international markets. So there has to be a strong impetus from ministries across various sectors to provide opportunities for scale, competency building, Atmanirbhar Bharat, to really make sure that what we do in India is then exported and our services revenue touch 1 trillion target, which is made for 2030. Currently, we are at $254 billion, where IT dominates. The Indian company definition needs to be looked at carefully by studying equivalent definitions in other markets. Again, it should be done under the WTO norms in a fair manner, such that there is equivalence in terms of requirement for companies' registration and what is an Indian company versus an international company, like other countries have. So we should be fair, progressive, not restrictive, and create an even playing ground. The second last point was the requirement of promotion, trade promotion councils at various embassies. I'm happy to say many excellencies and ambassadors are going to be today in the discussion, and we'll have their viewpoint. Commerce Secretary also mentioned about a trade promotion council being created at all embassies and consulates under a new restructure program that will help all entrepreneurs, consulting firms, construction, contracting firms to enter new markets. And of course, also looking at reducing the paperwork and hurdles in terms of permanent establishment, withholding taxes, double taxation treaties, DTAs, and so on and so forth, and make it simpler. These were the other points discussed. So way forward, last two slides, what the industry has to change, all of us, is captured in these 9 points. Number one, we need to think big. We need to get away from fragmented approach and look at partnerships in JV as a mindset change. And unless we do that, we'll never be able to penetrate against the large competition we face from China, Korea, Japan, Europe, US, to be a significant player in the services market in our sector. Number two, a solution mindset. We can't create reinventing the wheel. Strong, proven infrastructure and plants that we create in India become the foundation for those solutions to be exported out. And so we need to have a solution mindset. A strong focus on all our engineering talent to be digital savvy with 3D, 4D, 5D. Gone are the days of drawings and paper. We need to embrace digital. Finance acumen, we must understand the requirements of what is funding, loan, grants, taxation, structuring the project entity. All of this is important when you want to enter global markets. Number 5, on capability, training, certification, continuous learning is a must. Project and contract management skills. We are not going to be in international markets on L1, cost arbitrage. We are going to be there because of the solutions we provide and what we agree to deliver in terms of timeline, cost, and quality. Our workforce has to be very strong in project, contract, FIDIC contract management, and so on and so forth. Innovation, which includes value engineering, new methods. Recently, one of the ministry in India has included value engineering, which allows you deviation from a standard TOR within certain boundaries, which was not allowed in past. So value engineering will become an integral part of not only the work we do in India, but outside as well. Community development, very strong point. Wherever we go, if we want to have a long-term sustainable strategy to enhance services, we must develop the local communities, be it Africa, Southeast Asia, or other places. Skill building of local communities will give us a long-term connect that will enable us to expand further. And with the learnings from Chinese work in Africa, for example, gives us a stronger viewpoint to have stronger local community building. And of course, adherence to law compliance, strong ethics, integrity, and remember, we as industry, when we go outside, we are the ambassadors of our country. And India, we are representing India. And that ethics, transparency must be there in each one of our connects in the international markets. More so than our company, the fact that we are representing the country. The support that was requested of this brainstorming group was also 9 points. Number one, education, a strong focus on having education in terms of continuous learning for engineers, alignment with new technologies, green, circularity, Industry 4.0, both at undergrad and graduate level, recertification, possible chartered professional engineer, including engineers bill. Incentives, we talked about the best services sector in India is IT, ITES, and they were propelled to a global stage, which we are very proud of, because of the SEZ and STPI schemes. And the manufacturing and merchandise sector also has PLI schemes. We need similar support for the services sector across all areas, beyond our sector, whether it's tourism, accounting, legal. So this was a common requirement. We shouldn't call it incentive, we should call it promotion, because incentive sometimes becomes a negative word, but promotion to make best excellence offered to global markets. Number three, support by Ministry of External Affairs, embassies and consulates to help us penetrate the market, setup of our offices, help on tax and structuring issues, fund repatriation, withholding tax related issues. We should have this as a core area where we need support from the government. On the finance, Exim Bank should also work on line of credit to make it much more easier for people to understand. There are 3-4 modes of line of credit usage, but also look at, in a project in international, multiple banks provide funds, and how Exim can come together and get accredited and connected with other lines that comes in funding those projects so that we can do end-to-end project bidding. Fifth, on institutional support, Make in India policy should promote Indian companies with the proper definition. We should seek help from institution if we get into arbitration and other issues. Government of India support in terms of getting IDB, American Development Bank, to target LAC, which India is not a member. We need to become a member there to be part of many of these bids. That was put forward by the brainstorming. Visa regime, specific focus on new category of project visas, which can be part of FTA discussions. Legislative support with engineers bill, which has been debated and discussed for almost 3 to 4 decades, because it gives a proper structure and respect to the Indian engineers. And finally, with the engineers bill, some continuous relearning that promotes certification, continuous learning, promotes innovation and change management with chartered engineer focus. With those points as the context, I would now request my next panel member, and I hope that in the coming 3 panel discussions and we take these brainstorming session to the next stage and work with SEPC to really expand our exports services potential and also put India on a global map. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your deep insights. I take the privilege to now invite on stage our respected guest, Professor Abhijit Shirodkar from the Council of Architecture, to say a few words, please.
This one, right? Yeah, this one. Okay. I'm honored today to be here as an architect exactly 50 years after the formation of the Council of Architecture. In fact, the Architects Act was passed on the 1st of September 1972. We just celebrated 50 years of our existence, official existence, yesterday. Morning, everyone, all the dignitaries on the dais and off the dais. I stand before you on behalf of the Council of Architecture and its president, Professor Habib Khan, who unfortunately could not be here today because of his schedule. He just asked me to stand in for him. He would have been here otherwise. So on this occasion of our Golden Jubilee, it gives me great pleasure to be a part of this august gathering. And what better opportunity than this, that we are actually talking about services and expanding those services beyond our boundaries. I'm going to make a presentation here which is absolutely non-technical, no frills, extremely simple. Mr. Amit Sharma has already set the tone. He has gone through all the technicalities, all the figures. He has put up some extremely good points, which I also intend to cover a little bit after I finish these presentation, just introducing what the council does. Most of us do not know, unfortunately, even some architects do not know what the council does. It was actually, when it was formed, it was to regulate the architectural education and the profession. We are now looking at the formation of a higher education commission. So the architectural part of architectural education will probably go under the HECI. So we'll be left with regulating the architectural profession. So therefore, coming on board the SEPC is of extreme importance to us because we'll be regulating the profession as well. So here in architecture, or under the Council of Architecture, we not only register students who graduate as architects in the Register of Architects, we also publish the Register of Architects so that the general public knows who are the architects who are registered with the Council of Architecture. And to date, as of last month, we had around 1,23,000 plus architects who are registered with the council. So in a country like ours, 1,23,000 I think is a very, very small number. If we look at the concentration, most of it is in the metropolitan cities, with probably the western zone and the northern zone accounting for most of the architects in their metropolitan cities. So just like it was, about 2 decades back when we had a lot of furore where the doctors do not go into the rural areas, so it was made compulsory that they do rural practice. I think the same is still the condition with the architectural profession. The Council of Architecture also, as you see, publishes a register of architects so that it is available to the general public. It is also available on the website, so they can check as to who are registered. This also puts a stop to fake practice or people who call themselves architects without having the necessary qualifications. We also recommend recognition of foreign architectural qualifications to the government so that Indians who do their studies abroad can also be recognized and registered as architects here. Then we have reciprocal arrangements with foreign authorities. Of course, these are still quite a few in number only. We also regulate architectural education, having minimum standards of architectural education that the council has, and all the educational institutes are supposed to maintain these regulatory standards or minimum standards of education. The council inspects all the educational institutes almost every year till they set up their standards, and then after a couple of years or 3 years or 5 years, depending on the standards that they have in place. It also has a code of ethics for its registered architects. So it is not just that it regulates the education, it also regulates profession. And we also have a disciplinary committee to whom complaints can be addressed to, and the council has in the past also taken action against architects, including suspending their license to practice. That has also been done at times. So this is how a brief of how you register yourself as an architect. We also, to join the course, we also have to undergo an aptitude test. We call it NATA, the National Aptitude Test in Architecture. So until and unless you qualify at that, you cannot join any architectural course anywhere in the country. Or you have to give JEE, that is paper 2, that is also accepted as an aptitude test for admission to architecture. After you do your graduation, then you have to submit all your documents to the council to be registered as an architect to practice in India. These are the issues that we are facing as of now. This is what we have been deliberating. Moment we signed an MOU with SEPC, we started also thinking on these lines. We have been deliberating these for quite some time now. Till now, we have seen only architects from abroad practicing in India. We've never given a thought to all the architects who are practicing abroad or the difficulties that they have been facing when they practice abroad. So one of the foremost things was the issuance of a work visa. That is the first point that we have been facing for quite some time now. The qualifications are also not recognized. Now, this is a problem that is being taken up. We are, we have not yet, India has not yet signed, I think, the Canberra Accord for Architectural Education, wherein the accredited bodies for architectural education come together, and if that is on a standard global platform. So if we sign the Canberra Accord, all our architectural institutes will have to come on a particular standard so that they will be recognized. But then this accord has to be signed by the accrediting bodies, which in India is the NAC. The council is working with NAC to have an accreditation system in place for all architecture institutes. Right now, NAC has no parameters by which we can judge architectural institutes. So NAC and COA are working together to formulate one. The same is the story with all the design schools. None of the design schools, including NIDs don't give a damn to NAC because they are at their own platform and they believe that the NAC does not satisfy their parameters of testing at all. So that is why we are in the process of formulating an accreditation process by which we can rate or accredit architectural institutes, or maybe possibly the same norms could be followed by the design schools with certain minor changes tomorrow. Then we have a compulsion. In some of the countries, we have a compulsion to work with local architects. You cannot have independent practice in those countries, so you have to have a local architect as a partner if you want to. Of course, that's on paper, if you want to practice in that country. And finally, of course, this is a bone of contention everywhere, double taxation. Repatriation of income is also an issue. This is, of course, the way forward. Most of these points were also covered by Mr. Amit Sharma when he made his presentation. What would we like to have? I mean, of course, obviously, a work visa at minimal fees. The examination system, or the examination, that professional examination to be conducted in India. The council is also looking at having a professional examination to do away with this particular anomaly that is there. One of the major bone of contention by which we cannot sign the Canberra Accord is also because we do not have any professional examination. If you graduate and register with the council, you can practice anywhere in India. That is the status as of now. So what we are looking at is having the graduation degree only as a degree, which is a non-practicing degree. So tomorrow you take a degree, then you, of course, the norms that we are looking at is maybe you practice for a couple of years. That is what RIBA and even AIA does. You practice for a particular number of years and then appear at a professional examination, a professional competency examination, and then you can practice. With just a UG degree or with just a BH degree, at the most you can do post-graduation, you can do a PhD, you can teach, or you can practice in any other architect's office, or you can join a government service, but you cannot independently practice without giving the professional competency examination. So the council is looking at the professional competency examination. The parameters are being worked out. The nitty-gritties are being ironed out. There are a lot of issues because we are still not in the mindset of appearing again for a professional competency examination. So there is a big roadblock, mental roadblock amongst all architects. We are also thinking of having a continuing education program for architects whereby, just like the medical profession, you collect a certain number of points for your license to be renewed later on. So after the expiry of the present period, you do collect certain points for your continuing education program, and then you will be, your license would be extended. So that also is a point that we are looking at. So once we do that, I think the other point that we have regarding professional education, that should be ironed out. I think we can also then be a part of the Canberra Accord as well. Equal opportunities to carry out independent practice in those countries, so on a reciprocal basis. And of course, single taxation. That is something that we are looking at. That was all that I had in my presentation. I'm just going to look at a couple of points that were raised by Mr. Amit Sharma here. He talked of academic regulation or regulating the academics' professional education. The council is already doing that. But of course, there are still a number of points which we need to take up, especially in the light of NEP, or the new National Education Policy 2020 that is coming up. The major points that are there, which are of more concern to us, is NEP wants multiple entry and multiple exit points. For example, they say that we should give a certificate after 1 year, a diploma after 2 years, a degree after 3 years, and so on. Now, architecture is a 5-year course, so we are trying to understand how we can implement the NEP to architectural education. But then certainly we are looking at regulating academic standards and also trying to merge the NEP or trying to look at how we can align the architectural education with the new education policy 2020. There are certain other things also that were skewed because of NAC or because of the rating systems. One of them was mandatory PhDs or doctoral programs that were mandated for professional education. AICT, UGC, even all of these came up with a mandatory PhD. Now, the difficulty is having PhDs for professional education. On one hand, we talk of our students not being industry ready. On the other hand, we also talk of doing a lot of research. That is something which is a little contradictory. We need students who can be industry ready. Now, especially if you're talking of crossing the boundaries, we will definitely need students who can deliver. And if the students can, or you want students who can deliver, you have to have teachers who can help them deliver. Now, in practical fields, like architecture, like the arts, for instance, arts in the sense, I mean fine arts, commercial arts, where the market is extremely strong, even in case of, let's say, a simple field like animation, it's extremely difficult to just even find graduates to teach, leave alone PhDs, for instance. Yes. So that is the only point that we were looking at. So we can iron that out if we look at the new education policy. And UGC finally relented and came up with the idea of having a professor of practice. So if we can utilize the experience of these professionals, I think we should be able to have students who can deliver. So that is all that I'm looking at. We are already running behind schedule. So I thank you once again, SEPC, for bringing up, and as the Council of Architecture, we were extremely happy to come on board when we had SEPC approach us to sign an MOU, because till then we were looking at only MNCs from outside coming here. We are pleased to have Indian MNCs now. We are welcome to the tides being reversed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking address, and we congratulate the Council of Architecture on their Golden Jubilee. Please join me now in cordially inviting our eminent guest, Dr. Ajay Pradhan, President CEAI, to say a few words, please. I take the opportunity to now invite Mr. Chakresh Jain, Global CCO, WinZero, to say a few words, please.
Good morning, everyone, and respected senior industry leader present on the dais and in the audience. So, 35 years back, after doing my architecture, I started playing with AutoCAD and really loved it. And then I said, why don't I share this knowledge with my colleagues? And that's how I started training people on AutoCAD. Now, and of course, from that journey, today we have now become a part of a global company present across 4 continents in the world and serving more than 1 lakh users in this space across the world. Now, but to share some of my journey, when I started teaching on AutoCAD, way back in 87, 88, I used to wonder that if I teach AutoCAD, for how many years I'll be teaching AutoCAD people. I'm sure institutes will pick it up very soon and they will take up my job. But even after 35 years today, we find that I'm still teaching a lot of people new technology. So probably technology has been growing much faster than the way our academia has been picking it up. So of course, one of my requests to people in the present here from academic background, please do incorporate technology much faster in the academic curriculum, because that's one very, very critical thing which is helping today. So coming back to what Amit ji said in his presentation about 9 important initiatives, there we find at least 2 are the one where we are focused on. And one is digital, and second is the capability. So I personally